Thank you, Cian Corlin. Taoiseach, the Garda Confidential recipient, the office of the Garda Confidential recipient, was appointed after the Morris Tribunal, which investigated serious wrongdoings within the Gardaí in Donegal. It was set up to hear complaints from members of An Garda Síochána, and above all to protect the integrity of the force and to offer full protection to Garda whistleblowers. Now, I've read a transcript, Taoiseach, between the Garda Confidential recipient and a Garda whistleblower, Sergeant Maurice McCabe. It makes for very serious and grave reading, because the import of the transcript are such that the Garda whistleblower is frustrated, clearly, and has a sense of disbelief that his complaints are going nowhere. And clearly, the transcript reveals efforts, if not subtle threats, that if the material that the whistleblower has ever gets to the media, Minister Shatter will come after the whistleblower. And I think that's a very grave situation in a democracy, particularly given the office that is involved here. And to give you just some flavour, the confidential recipient is saying to the whistleblower, if stuff was to get out into the public, the print media, I'll tell you something, Maurice, and this is just personal advice to you. If Shatter thinks you're screwing him, you're finished. What I'm saying to you, if stuff is to get into print broadcasting media, if Shatter thinks it's you, if he thinks or is told by the Commissioner or the Gardaí, here's this guy again trying another route, trying to put pressure, he'll go after you. And there's more. And basically, he's essentially saying, he suggests in the transcript that maybe the Minister is too close to the Commissioner and that he won't he won't deal with some of the issues as a result. And also, the confidential recipient makes clear he knows the Minister. He says at once, I know Alan, and we know he was appointed, he was a Fine Gael supporter, he's entitled to be, and we know he made a donation, although the sensitivity of the office would, I think, call now into question whether it was an appropriate appointment or not. But he will say that, your complaints, he says to the whistleblower, went to the Department of Justice, and that annoyed the Commissioner greatly. I'm sure it's going to be an embarrassment for the Gardaí, a disaster for them. And listen, if your complaints are exposed, to the print media, it will make him an angry man. Now, Taoiseach, I think that's truly shocking, and there's more in these transcripts. And what I want to ask you, Taoiseach, is, Deputy McWallace was the first to raise this in the House last week. Bar last night, I've heard no denial of the content of the transcript. There's an oral recording of it. I have read the transcript. Have you spoken, Taoiseach, to Minister Shatter since this was first revealed last week? Has the Minister for Justice spoken to the confidential recipient about this exchange? And are you concerned about this, Taoiseach?
Thank you.
And because it seems that the confidential recipient was protecting the Minister, the Department, the Commissioner, but not the whistleblower. That's the sense I take from it. And is the position of the confidential recipient now tenable, given what has been revealed via these transcripts?
Taoiseach.
Thank Deputy Martin for his comments and for his question. Yes, I am concerned about it. I believe there's a matter of public interest here of the utmost importance that has to be dealt with. Now, the confidential recipient, as Deputy Martin's aware, was appointed under a statutory instrument introduced quite some time ago. Minister Shatter has already made it clear that he's unhappy with the way that this has operated. And separate from this particular matter, he's intending and has stated his intention to bring in legislation to change the way it works. I might say this, though. The Minister dealt with this in the House last night. He doesn't have any knowledge of the alleged conversation, of a transcript of the conversation, or of a tape of that conversation. Nor indeed is there any basis for implying that the Minister ever expressed the kind of views that are attributed to him in what has been alleged. Nor is there any basis for implying that the Minister ever had the conversation of any nature with the nor is there a basis for implying that the Minister had any conversation of any nature with the confidential recipient concerning the expressions of views by him. To suggest otherwise would be completely false. Now, the Minister has no access to, nor should he have, access to details of confidential conversations which take place between the confidential recipient and members of the Garda Síochána. that would completely defy the purpose of the statutory instrument in appointing a person for receipt of confidential information in the first place. Now, as I said to you in the beginning, Deputy Martin, I regard this as a matter of fundamental importance. There is clearly a matter of public concern that needs to be dealt with here. Yes, I did speak to the Minister for Justice, and I have asked the Department of Justice to give me a report on this incident, on the conversations as published and comments from the person concerned here, and I await that. The position is that I think it's important that we should know whether a conversation of the nature reported took place, because it is absolutely important that there be confidence of the public in any confidential recipient. Why would anybody go to somebody if they don't have, trust or belief that the situation is above board? So this is a matter of grave concern to me. And I think it's also important that no member of the force should feel in any way under pressure or under threat in their dealings with a confidential recipient, but that it would be a matter for the confidential recipient to consider whether there is a matter that should be addressed in allegations made by a member of the force room. That was the purpose of setting up the confidential recipient in the first place. So, as I said, separate from this, the Minister has already said that he's not happy with this arrangement and the way it's operated. But for me, I've asked the Department of Justice to furnish me with a report on these transcripts, whether this took place or not, and comments from the person concerned. I regard that, Deputy Martin, as being a matter of considerable public importance.
Thank you.
And we'll deal with it.
Deputy Martin.
Thank Taoiseach, first of all, for his reply, but I would put it to you, Taoiseach, that yesterday when I put this question to you, you were absolutely silent in relation to it. And there has been no comprehensive statement from the Minister in relation to this, and there's been absolutely no evidence that the Minister has been proactive in this regard at all since the item was first raised on the floor of this House last week. But I have to say to you, Taoiseach, that you've answered some questions I weren't asked. I've made no implications about anything in relation to the Minister. I simply made a point that in terms of the interaction between the Garda confidential recipient, the whole import of the transcript is the Minister will be an angry man if this gets into the public domain. The entire purpose, it seems to me, of the exchange is, whatever happens, Maurice, this must not get into the media. Now, I've heard from other recipients, or from other whistleblowers as well, Taoiseach, that the strategy seems to be to get some of this stuff into the courts, and then to get mediation, then to get a confidential agreement to get the thing settled. And a lot of the stuff never comes out. And the bottom line, Taoiseach, is whistleblowers, we have all the fine-sounding words we've had in the rhetoric about how we all want to celebrate whistleblowers make life easy. It's a terribly lonely place to be for a genuine Garda whistleblower. Because you know what, Taoiseach? The system trains its guns on the whistleblower. They're demonised, they're undermined, and that's what's happened over the last number of weeks. If you take the saga with Public Accounts Committee, you take the GSOC yesterday, what happened in the last 48 hours? Guns are trained on GSOC because it didn't report to the Minister, even though they had no obligation to.
Sorry,
the whole machinery of government,
please.
of state, and even some media, they pointed in the direction of the victim. And the whole thing was messed up. And the same here. The whistleblowers feel there's no one out there. They feel the entire system is against them. From the Minister to the Department, the whole thing was to undermine the quality of what they were saying, the import of what they're saying. I think it's very, very serious, Taoiseach. I think we're heading in a direction here, because there suggests there's some axis of collusion and a concerted effort to cover up this entire saga.
Thank you, Deputy.
Because the bottom line that emanates from this transcript is, whatever else happens, this must not get into the media, because it will make a lot of people in high positions very, very angry. And you know something? That wouldn't be good for you, Mr. Whistleblower.
Well, you raised this yesterday in the House here. When I left the chamber, I read the transcript. I asked that the Department of Justice would furnish me with a report on this matter, including comments from the person involved. This is a matter of public concern which interests us all. Now, you said I answered questions that weren't asked. I did say to you that there is no basis for implying that the Minister for Justice spoke to the confidential recipient about expressions that refer to him in the article that appeared as printed in the newspaper. As I said, the situation is that the confidential recipient has to be seen to be a person who can be trusted. Now, you speak of axes of collusion, you speak of heading in a particular direction, you speak of guns being trained on whistleblowers. This is a matter of considerable public concern. So I haven't spoken to the confidential recipient. I've asked that the Department of Justice furnish me with a report, including comments on this matter from the person concerned. I await that report as soon as possible, Deputy Martin. I think you can't have a situation where people, members of the Garda force, who want to give information to the confidential recipient, do not have trust in that person, or do not believe that the information that they give will be kept confidential, and that their confidentiality is protected. As you are well aware, that's what happened after Morris, and that's why the confidential recipient is appointed under a statutory instrument. So I await that report from Justice, including comments from the person concerned. I will act on it when I receive that.